Chapter 1631. The Brothers 3. Nine came back promptly at dawn the next day, with a larger-than-expected group in tow. Not only had she brought back Jeff and Brother Chin, she had also collected 3 more group members for them, all in the later parts of the Void Immortal stage. "Good morning. I got us a group leader, and he brought his brothers," she announced proudly. The berserker leading the team held out his hand toward Carl. "I hope you don't mind that we've got a clan quest in the area. The warehouse is short on ember flowers, and they don't grow well within the compound. So, as long as you're good with stopping off in a few spots where the fire element is strong, we're happy to go with you. That shouldn't be any trouble at all for us. You see, our primary purpose in going out is to collect magical plants of all sorts for alchemy and mystic cooking research. If we do happen to find a hidden space, more power to us, but we really need those plants,"
Carl explained.
The berserkers smiled. "Well then, I think that we're on the same page. There are a number of spices that grow in the high fire element regions that we're likely to find the ember flowers at, and those are essential to many cooking recipes. But to get there, we've got to pass through a fair bit of open territory first, and the coastal regions move from water to earth element dominant before we get to the old battleground where we're likely going to find the flowers. Our only issues will be if someone has already harvested all that are ready, or if we run into a hostile sex team members out there. Normally we wouldn't. We will be getting closer to Condom, but we're staying north of the road, and their usual hunting grounds are west of the city, as the resources are better over there." "How much do you know about the ocean?" Carl shrugged. "I have heard that there is a mana dead zone out there somewhere, but other than that, just that there are a lot of blue elves sailing the region." "Both are true, but the dead zone is not a natural phenomenon. It's more that something is actively draining the mana, and it's centered offshore somewhere. I'm not quite clear on the exact location. I'm not a sailor. It's likely on a map somewhere. But the important part is that even New Home isn't entirely clear of the side effects of whatever it is, and the mana here is just a bit weaker than it is further west. So, the smaller sects and clans rarely come east, while we live on the far eastern coast. It makes for some easy hunting and harvesting if you don't mind slightly lower quality goods." "Well, that's not half bad. Since we're looking for living plants, the quality will recover after we get them transplanted, and the food products aren't a problem if the quality is a bit lower, as long as the taste is still good. The important part is flavor, after all. Our group only has one mystic cook at the immortal rank, and he's a barbecue specialist. All sorts of meat." The big man gave Carl an eager smile. "Oh,
Which one is it?"
the turtle. The dark flame phoenix. His name is Hawk. "See, that makes sense. I should have thought of that right away, but I've never seen him in a humanoid transformation, only as a demon crow." Carl nodded. "In fact, he usually cooks in that form as well. Cooking flames won't hurt his feathers, and it's easy to sanitize his claws." "How many from your side are coming with us?" Carl did a quick head count, and realized that Thor was preparing for the outing as well. "Myself and Dana, plus 7, possibly 8. Beasts. Most of them will be in humanoid form for the trip, but some might rest in their separate spaces until it's time to work. It's part of my class abilities, you see." "Alright, if they want to come out, we can do introductions." Ray appeared beside Carl, and the berserker's hand instinctively went to his weapon. Good reflexes. "I am Ray. Beside me are Kara and Remy. The tall one with green hair is Thor. I believe you know Leo, and the fox is Tion. In the air are Hawk and Opal, our 2 winged members," she explained. "That's quite the assembly. If my system is right, you should be a blood destruction spider, correct?" Ray smiled, showing pointy teeth.
"Yes.
My specialties are summoning undead and stabbing things. Carl can also summon, and Dana is a golem mistress." The berserker smiled. "So, we're not going to be short on group members in a fight, or for harvesting. I am Mark. These are my brothers Nate and Jim." Ray doubted that the word brother was in a literal sense. Not only were the other 2 less than half his size, they didn't look at all alike. But she didn't look like her brothers either, so he must mean it in the proper way, not the human bloodline way. "It's a pleasure to meet you. What does that class color mean?" "It seems to be some sort of specialized robe," Ray asked. "That's right. I'm a berserker, and these two have the ninja class. Oh, then we have an excellent group. Tion is our healer, as well as an aspiring bard. He gained a number of bard-type buff skills recently. Heals and buffs? That is an excellent combination. I'm sure you know that the clan is always short on clerics. Ray nodded. Remy is a shaman, so she does have heals as well. Just different ones than Tion. If we need to fight, she will put out healing totems. Technically, Leo could heal as well, but he only had one healing spell at the moment, and it was a low-output long-duration type. Not exactly the sort of healing that everyone counted on in an emergency. Ray realized that without their clerics, the group was becoming imbalanced. By numbers, they were cleric-heavy before, but now they had so many summons that they needed more than just one healer. Plus, she missed being able to equip Lotus and go on adventures across the battlefield. Thor mentally nodded in agreement. He was going to miss having Tessa as the protector of his back when it came time to fight. With her in position, he didn't have to worry about things getting on his back where he couldn't reach them. Chapter 1632. Squirrel. With the introductions finished, and the two hatchling-sized dragons deposited with Tessa in the tiny world, the group made their way toward the west gates, attracting an incredible amount of attention. The new home clan was mostly humans, 9 out of 10 members, in fact. Seeing so many obviously non-human members from Nyan and Dana to Ray, Kara, Leo, and Remy, who was currently draped around Carl's neck for a better view, was not something that they experienced every day. However, the system identified them all as members, and they were all immortal, so it left everyone wondering, when do we get members like that? The group didn't linger, not wanting to get caught up in questions, or picking up dead weight tag along members when they had a mission to fulfill. The task that the brothers were on was not just one that they had picked up from the clan's mission board. It was actually a punishment detail from their combat trainer for not meeting his standard for progression. Can't pass the test? Go pick flowers instead, was his logic. And they couldn't go back to class until they had finished collecting said flowers. It wasn't all bad. The mission to get the flowers paid pretty well, and they could use that money to get them the resources that they needed to pick up their combat capabilities. Once they had that, they could likely meet the standards for their mentor's test, and then they would be back on track. The guards nodded to them as they left the gate, verifying that everyone appeared to be leaving of their own free will, and that they were all. No, they weren't all adults. There was the badger and the turtle with them who were definitely not adults. But they did have their immortal spirit fully formed, so they were at least combat capable and not unable to take care of themselves. It was just a shame that the guards wouldn't get to see them in action. Alright, we have no real leads on what we want today, other than the basic knowledge of what areas have the right elemental affinity. So, this is going to be a bit of a treasure hunt. What sorts of plants do we need more of? Water or earth element? If we need water, we can stay near the coast. If not, we will go direct to our destination. Wait, I forgot to check that everyone is capable of keeping up with a fast jog. The Tortolans aren't known for their speed. Mark realized. Leo gave him a thumbs-up gesture. Now that we're outside the gates, I will rest in my space until I find good stuff. I can see out from there, and then I don't have to run. The berserker sighed in relief. If they had to keep to an elementary schooler's jogging pace, it would be a nightmare. Alright, is anyone else on the less capable side of the physique spectrum? Kara laughed as she transformed back into her natural state and flew circles overhead, while Remy just shrugged as she hung over Carl's shoulders. She was a bit slower than most, but it didn't really matter, as she could simply cheat and find a ride. Dana whistled, and Hawk landed beside her, so she could hop on his shoulders, leaving Opal wondering if she should make rides for everyone. They didn't have to take damage, but if she gave everyone a faster mount, they would get wherever they were going quickly. Unfortunately, that would defeat the purpose of the outing, as she understood it. They wanted to collect plants, not watch the scenery fly by under them. So they couldn't go too fast, but they didn't want to be too slow, as there were hundreds of kilometers of open ground to the west of them, and they could all be full of immortal-grade reagents. Seconds later, Kara dove down out of the sky and grabbed something out of a tree. I found loot. Hawk cheered as it appeared that she had a mouse in her claws, but when Carl looked more closely, it was a young druid in squirrel form. Put the druid back. They're trying to skip class in peace. Carl called to her as the badger circled the group. Kara sighed and let the druid go, dropping it from 20 meters up. The squirrel immediately spread its legs, floating through the air. Nyan laughed and held out her hands to catch them, but the druid transformed into an irate young dragonkin when it was a few meters from her. What the hell was that? I got dive-bombed by one of my own clan members. The squeaky young boy's voice complained. Sorry, Kara is bad about checking for names. She thought you were an actual squirrel. Carl apologized on her behalf, because the badger had no intentions of doing it herself. I get resurrected in a small body, one single time, and this is the indignity that I have to suffer. The druid ranted. Oh, I don't recall our group rescuing a druid. Does someone else in the clan use that technique? Carl asked, directing the question at Nyan. Nyan shook her head. Not that I know of. They certainly could do it, but I don't know of anyone who does. Oh, you must be the world dragon's avatar. I've got a bone to pick with you. Your so-called healing tree has started an idiotic trend among the green dragons. They're all casting resurrection spells to reform the body in a childish state when the soul is damaged. Some nonsense about more complete healing. Carl did his best not to laugh, he really did. But a little amusement still slipped out as the druid glared at him. They're not wrong. Jeff is going to fully recover from having his immortal spirit shattered thanks to this technique. It might not be the fastest method of recovery, but as far as fully and completely healed, no other method is quite as comprehensive. Carl informed him. The reborn druid grumbled something that Carl couldn't understand, then turned away to return to what he was doing. Keep your badger under control. I'm trying to rebuild my cultivation base here in the forest, not get eaten as a snack. Chapter 1633. Interesting Things. Kara had already flown away, looking for more interesting things. But the druid wasn't waiting. He transformed back into a squirrel and ran back into the trees, scrambling up the branches to the same spot she had snatched him from. It was still within sight of the gates, so under normal circumstances, it was considered perfectly safe. Nobody had expected Kara to simply snatch him out of the tree. Not even him. The group kept going, keeping up a steady jog down the road as Leo spread indomitable to the whole group so they didn't get tired and slow down before they found the good stuff. Ooh, Carl. Turn right. I can smell magical flowers to the right. Remy insisted. Hawk looked down at the area she was thinking of, but didn't see any flowers at all. It wasn't even forest, just grass and shrubs, but he didn't see any flowers from where he was circling overhead with Dana. Perhaps they were too far away to see the little stuff? That shouldn't be the case. His eyes were excellent. Hawk flew low, looking for the plant, but he still couldn't see any flowers at all. However, Remy had slithered down off Carl's shoulders, and she was digging under a bush using 4 shovels at the same time. So, it was a subterranean flower. Now Hawk didn't feel bad about not seeing it. Perhaps that was the trick to finding resources here? If they were too easy to spot, they would be gone already. So he couldn't rely on his eyes. He would have to focus on finding anomalies in the mana that might be a magical plant in hiding. Remy emerged from the hole covered in dirt with a truffle in her hands and a smile on her face. This is going to be an excellent resource for later. I don't know if it works in alchemy, but it definitely works with cooking. I've definitely had truffle mushroom sauce for steak before, she declared. The other clan members winced at the thought. Those truffles were a rare magical resource, worth multiple clan credits each, and she had a whole cluster of them in her arms. Her find would fund their resource use for half a year, but the Naga fully intended to find a way to eat it. Remy put the plant into her swamp on a bit of a hill so that the water element plant was kept moist, but not submerged below the waterline, where it would rot. That should be perfect for its continued growth, and once it was settled, she would split it up to replant it in dozens of different spots. And on to the next one. I still smell flowers in the area. Mark gave her a suspicious look. Did Naga smell like that? Didn't they do the tongue thing like snakes? But Remy was vanishing into the bushes again, nearly invisible when she was keeping low to the ground, thanks to her slender body. The only one that could easily track her was Hawk, whose senses were keenly attuned to finding things that moved in the grass. This time, Hawk managed to find the plant that she was looking for. He couldn't see it, as it was below water level in a small pond, but when he circled it, the rest of the group came to see what they had found. Remy vanished into the water, and then came back with a lotus plant that was out of flower. Normally, that would mean that it wasn't ready for harvest, but Remy moved it to her space anyhow. She would keep it growing, and then she would get all the flowers for herself. I don't think that she understands harvesting magical resources. Jim, one of the ninja class twins, whispered. She's transplanting them into a separate space. So, she doesn't need the resources ready for use, just strong enough to be moved.
Carl explained. I see.
Well, that will be inconvenient for those who knew these plants and were waiting for them. But if she can keep them alive, it will be better for the clan as a whole. Getting a steady supply of magical reagents is a pain when they don't like to grow anywhere but where they are. Not even many of the druids are capable of keeping up a greenhouse of that quality. It's a unique effect of the Beast Masterclass. The beasts need a suitable environment to grow and thrive, so their separate spaces are suitable for growing all the plants that would normally be beneficial to them. Remy is a water element creature, so water element plants are right at home in her space.
Carl explained.
I have the most lovely Naga swamp. It's a shame that I can't share it with the world. The spell to recreate it just isn't the same. Then, Remy returned to Carl's shoulders. She couldn't sense any more plants that she wanted nearby, so they could continue their mission. She wasn't the only one that needed loot, though the chances that they would find a chaos element plant here for Kara were fairly low. Though, she already had a rather large patch of chaos lilies growing in her space after collecting that one from the battlefield. Wait, don't go anywhere yet. I want the thing, Leo announced as he left his space in turtle form. Just remember that you can't bring living animals back into your space. Carl warned. That's fine. It's for the lake in the tiny world. Leo lumbered into the water, then vanished in a blur of motion as his aquatic body was finally back in its native habitat. Seconds later, hundreds of fish appeared in an unstocked lake in the tiny world, all sorts of colors and 3 different species, but all immortal rank. Leo rose over the water to give them a happy flipper wave, then returned to his space. What was that? Mark asked. Leo fishing for lunch. The berserker laughed. Traveling with your group is never going to get boring. We're not even an hour in, and they've already found more than I did on my entire last trip. Chapter 1634. Wisdom of the Monks. The group moved quickly up the shore, looking for water element plants until it was time to move inland. Ray and Thor picked a few plants as they went, not magical resources, just decorative plants for either their space or the tiny world. There is something good to the southwest. Remy updated them a half-second before Hawk sent the mental chirp that meant he had found trouble. Or mice. The 2 noises were nearly the same excited tone. Mark was instantly on alert as his senses picked up the same thing, and the 2 ninjas vanished, prompting Ray to do the same. She was not about to miss out on stabbing something because she was curious and forgot to hide. What they found were 5 other clan members standing around a glowing stone on the ground with weapons drawn. It was impossible to tell if they had come together, but they were obviously not intending to work together now that they had found whatever was in the middle of the circle. We can likely leave them to their devices. It's not a plan at all. Thor noted. Or, hear me out. Kara began, which caused Mark to laugh and the group to notice their approach. It's ours, we found it, one of the men insisted. Kara folded her hands in a reverent manner and bowed in imitation of the wise monks that she had seen in the clan. Wise man says possession is 9/10 of the law. Wise man forgot to tell you the other 10th is me mugging you and taking it anyhow. She intoned in a slow, even tone. Mark was laughing openly, having seen that one coming. But Kara's comment had the desired outcome. All 5 of them dove for the stone, intending to put it in their inventory before Kara could take it from them. The situation quickly turned into an all-out brawl, while Kara took out a bag of caramel popcorn and offered some to the berserker. You are the fun kind of evil, Badger. Thank you. I do try my very best. You're not going to try to get it? Mark asked. Nope. I've got like 8 of them in my pile of loot already. They're not that valuable. If it were something new, I would have taken it already. The butterfly excels at illusions, after all. Opal was so silent, floating along behind the group, that most of them had forgotten she was there. But she was perfectly capable of taking the item and replacing it with an illusionary item. However, Opal didn't want it either. It was just a slightly flawed totem rank earth stone. She could literally just ask Tion to make her one, and it would likely be better quality. We will pass wide of the fight. They can sort out their loot issues on their own. You'd almost think that the moron was with them, the way that they're fighting over every possible clan credit worth of loot. That guy is always broke, even now that he's somehow managed to advance. Kara laughed. It's not even been a week. Give him at least a year to pay back all his debts and start building up some wealth again. He also advanced his class, so he might start getting on the right track again. Or not. His old skill that triggered random advancements is technically still active. A few more kilometers down the road, the aura of the land began to change, gaining fire element affinity, as well as lingering traces of the fundamental rule of blood. Oh, things got interesting here at some point. I haven't felt this much of my favorite fundamental rule before. Ray noted. Yeah, it was a huge battle. The fundamental rules here are chaotic, so it can be a good place for the kids to come to help their comprehension. They can wander through the battlefield and receive some sort of enlightenment that will help them advance. Mark explained. Oh, that could be useful. We've all mastered our rules, but next time we're here we could bring some of the hatchlings with us.
Thor realized.
Hatchlings? Thor nodded. I am a behemoth. My offspring come from eggs. Ah, that makes sense. I thought that you were some sort of fae, given the green hair. But we should be close to where the ember flowers might be found. They're dark blue or red, with black rims around the edges of the flower. I have 7 already. Hawk explained. Where did you put Dana? She's still on my back. The golems are picking them for me as we fly over. Oathbreaker likes ember flowers. Carl sighed and turned to the berserker. If you happen to see a pair of Oathbreaker demons wandering the area, they're on our team. My Dana mage asked them to help her pick flowers. Mark simply stared at him for a few seconds, trying to assemble those words in his brain in some order that made more sense. Your wife summoned 2 Oathbreaker demons to help her pick flowers?
Yes.
Apparently, there are quite a few of the ember flowers here. How many did you need for your mission? 3. Oh, then it's not going to be an issue. We'll find that many in no time at all. Should we spread out in a search pattern? The first 3 go to the brothers to fill the quest, and everything after is bonus loot. Carl suggested. In the distance, Dana laughed. Just come over here. There are hundreds of them in bloom here, in this clearing. Mark went pale. That was not normal. Not normal at all. If there were hundreds of fire element flowers of that power growing in a single clearing, that meant there was something powerful and fire element attuned, supporting their growth. However, that also meant they could fulfill their quest on the first day. All right, move forward carefully. Watch for traps and ambushes. I have a bad feeling about this, he warned. No water or wind element magic if there's a fight. It will kill the flowers. Remy added. That was the important part. Not just because Hawk wanted them, but because she hated wasting valuable alchemy reagents. Chapter 1635. It's contagious. Carl approached the clearing and found that Hawk had already cleared a 10-square-meter portion for his space. That was enough to make him happy, as he didn't want to flood the space with the same flowers. All right, let's start picking. Get them carefully, surround the roots with dirt, and move the whole thing to your space without touching it. It's the best and safest method. Nate warned. Everyone began the work of picking the flowers, careful not to pull ones that were side by side. It was a well-known trick in the immortal worlds that if you didn't pick adjacent plants, anything monitoring the area was much less likely to pick up on the discrepancy. The feeling would simply fade a little as you worked, instead of the feeling of the zone shrinking. Hawk wasn't quite doing that. He had a priority system to pick only the most mature and healthy plants, so he was taking under a third of what he found, though some were side by side. That feeling that they were getting when they first arrived was getting stronger, and Mark suddenly stood and motioned for everyone to retreat. Get back into the trees, away from the orchard. Move like we're just passing by it, he warned. Carl followed the instructions, and the beasts all returned to his space, preparing for an ambush, should something come for them. It was easier to jump out of their space and into position than it was to adjust while they were already out, especially for Opal and Hawk, who could appear in the air at quite a distance overhead from Carl. Within seconds, the group was clear of the flower patch, and dozens of presences in the distance began to trigger Carl's mana manipulation sense. There are others coming. Powerful ones. I suggest we keep moving, he whispered to the others. All right, I know just where to go. There is an earth element cave not far from here. If we head directly toward that, we might be able to convince whoever is coming for the flowers that it wasn't us who thinned the crop. Mark led the way, with only Carl, Dana, and Nyan visible behind him. Nate and Jim were stealthy sorts, and the beasts were waiting in ambush, but Carl suspected that making their group look smaller might actually draw more aggression their way. If the enemy thought that they could bully them, there was a real chance that they would try to force the group to turn over what they had. From her space, Kara kept up a running commentary using her limited prophetic skills and her rather unique senses. They've gone to the flowers. 1 elder and 10 who have just finished their immortal spirit. None of them feel strong, and they've all got the same magical aura, so I think they all trained the same thing. She narrated. They're really broke, too. That guy can't even afford a proper ride, so he's flying on some beat-up old sword. Tion added. Carl laughed. He's what? Right? He's just standing on his sword like an idiot. Do you think that he's just learning to fly and he needs support? Dana laughed quietly as she replied. I suppose it's possible. It would make more sense to use a flying transformation. Are they at least fast?
No.
You fly faster. Carl without wings flies faster. They're just generally bad at life. Tion informed them, while Kara laughed at something only she could see. They've realized that the best flowers were picked. Kara informed them. There is a group at the flowers now. They've realized that the best ones have been picked. I will keep you updated. Carl whispered to Mark. They're searching the area for signs. LOL. Someone tasted Thor's pee. Dana grimaced. There has to be a better way to find out what a mystery liquid is than to taste it. I think they've realized that whoever did it might still be close. I can't hear them, but they're gesturing all around. Before he could give the update, the group shot up into the sky and began to search in every direction from the flower patch. There was a junior acolyte coming their way, definitely on the lower side of the immortal spirit realm. We've got incoming. Mark shrugged. If there's a problem, I can fight a duel well enough. Carl laughed. I don't think that will be necessary, unless you really want to. I am exceptionally talented when it comes to duels. I've even got an item that gives me a bonus to damage during them. The immortal stopped in front of them, clearly blocking their way, and Mark brought the group to a halt. You new home peasants. Turn over the stolen resources, and I might let you leave here, the stranger demanded. Is he dumb, or is he stupid? Dana mock whispered, loud enough that the man could hear her. The young immortal sent up a red flare, and a half-second later the leader of their group, an elder at the peak of the void immortal realm, appeared 10 meters above the ground beside him. Good work. Now, who is in charge of your group? Out of respect for clan leader Narissa, I will let you leave alive. Just leave the stolen resources and the girl. Carl turned to Mark. Did something happen to them? Like some sort of curse that makes them stupid? Mark shrugged. Arrogance is a common trait for immortals. Intelligence is optional. Carl lifted off the ground, so he was standing eye to eye with the elder, only 10 meters apart. Let me explain how this is going to go. Either you are going to leave, or I am going to put so many holes in you that your sect will use your body as a lawn sprinkler before they resurrect you. In her space, Ray shifted in anticipation. Those words definitely meant that she was going to get to come out to play. Chapter 1636. Insufficient Fountain. You think that you can defeat an elder of the Dueling Blades sect? The man laughed. Carl took out the Blade of Champions and slung it over his shoulder. I don't think I can beat you. I know that I'm going to beat you like a disobedient child. Now, do you want me to use the blade or the flat of my sword? The acolyte stared at Carl in absolute shock. Nobody dared to mock a dueling champion like that. Since nobody is speaking, I will give you an advantage, a handicap when fighting the mentally handicapped. I will stay in this form instead of transforming. The elder was nearly frothing at the mouth in rage, but he was still holding back as the rest of his group approached. If he was counting on them to help, he was in for a bad time. He's in for a bad time anyhow. I want to know what he looks like as a lawn sprinkler. Ray corrected. Hey Mark, how much of his corpse do we have to give back to be properly polite?
Carl asked.
That was the last straw for the elder, and he shadow-stepped behind Carl, only to be pulled out of the sky by a string of silk. Look at what I've got. Oh, you're going to be so pretty as a lawn sprinkler. The screams of the acolyte drowned out the startled gurgling that the elder made when Ray speared him with hundreds of needles of hardened spider silk. Ray pulled them back out, and every artery in the man's body sprayed blood for half a second before a regeneration skill closed the small holes. Disappointing. I am going to have to make bigger holes in you. The elder stared up at the psychopathic spider for half a second, then fled. Shadow Step was his preferred skill, but Ray knew that one better than anyone, and she was gone before the afterimage of the elder had even faded.
Carl turned to the acolyte.
Now, did you want to give it a go with your friends? Or are you going to look for your elder? Because I can assure you that if you don't rescue him soon, she's going to kill him in a most horrible way. Carl laughed at the understatement. Even if they showed up to rescue their elder, he was going to die a most horrific death. The only difference was that they would join him. You will not leave here, the acolyte shouted, before his insult was cut off in the middle by Kara casting a chaos vortex on his head. The man died in the middle of a sentence, minus his head, while a very confused and disappointed Mark stared at the corpse with an axe in both hands. All raged up with nothing to kill, his brother Nate joked from somewhere in the trees. Indeed, the berserker had thought that it would be a fight, so he had activated rage, and now he was all worked up with nothing to fight. Is Lady Ray going to be all right? The ninja asked, after realizing that the other acolytes had turned to follow the elder. She's fine. She's already done, and on her way back. As it turns out, humans don't have enough blood for what she wanted to do, and forcing water into them to turn them into a fountain is impractical. The berserker smiled. I will keep that in mind for later. You should likely have her leave the body behind. It causes problems if you permanently kill someone's elder. Carl laughed. They're not going to be happy either way, considering the state that they are getting their elder back in. However, I don't think that they're going to come to the clan leader to protest. Mark grumbled in annoyance as rage faded and his adrenaline levels normalized. All right, let's go to the Earth Crystal Cave anyhow. Let them sort out their issues and we will go take a look and see if there is anything left. The crystals grow back slowly, so there might be something to find that hasn't been picked clean by other visitors. Ray snuck back into the group, remaining in stealth until she was 200 meters away and then returning to her space. That was close to the maximum distance for the skill, but it seemed like it should be far enough for most purposes. She had never figured out how to open portals, but she could move to the tiny world easily enough. The only issue was she could only exit where it was or where Carl was. An oversight in the design, in her opinion. A bellow of rage let them all know that someone had found the elder, and that Ray's hard work had not gone unnoticed, which meant that it was time to get a move on and explore the cave, where the lingering magic would help disguise their presence from anyone who might come looking for them. Nate came out of hiding to lead the way, as Mark still needed a few minutes before he was thinking clearly again. The cave is only a few more kilometers from here. Happy coincidence, as it were. Most of the time, it's not actually used as a treasure spot, but somewhere to get out of the rain. The cave is set into a bit of a hill and runs deep underground, with a small spring in one of the branches that feeds from the groundwater and runs off somewhere. So no matter how bad of shape you're in, there is shelter and water in a cave system deep enough that the temperature is comfortable and stable all year round. Never too hot, never too cold. If you're exploring the region in the future, keep it in mind. Now, most of the time, anyone you find there will also be there to rest. But you do have to watch out for hostiles, and if you're actively being chased, they will likely know all 3 exits to the complex. It's a pretty popular place, all things considered. To Carl, That sounded like it was both the safest place to rest for a night and the best laid trap for anyone who wanted to surround a group of adventurers. Chapter 1637. Safety Measures. The entrance to the cave was larger than Carl had expected, not much of a hidden cave, and more of an obvious natural feature sort of place. If you could walk 5 people shoulder to shoulder through the opening, or let Ray walk through in spider form, you were not keeping much out of your safe space. However, once they got a bit further in, there was a choke point just wide enough for one person to pass through. It was small enough that Ray would have struggled in spider form if she didn't have the ability to simply pass through the stone or teleport past it. That would keep out some of the larger monsters, at least. Enough that the groups hiding in here could rest a little easier, and small enough that they could set a barrier to block the door if necessary. Their group didn't bother. They didn't want to alert others to the fact that they were in here if someone came to the entrance looking but didn't enter. Mark wasn't sure that there would be any more trouble as long as the Elder was recovered mostly intact. Does anyone have reliable light magic? Or should I use a lantern? Mark asked. I think we do. I never use it since I don't need light to see. Dana, did you have a light spell? Carl replied. Dana laughed and lit the cavern with a dim glowing orb that she set to hover over Mark's head like a beacon. Very funny, but you've got a point, it really does serve as a beacon. Unfortunately, there isn't enough light in here that I can see where I'm going without it. So I need something. He led them deeper into the cavern, then stopped and pointed to the right. That's where the water runs. If you need water, you can get it there. Dana tapped him on the shoulder and turned him around. The water is that way. Mark blinked, then looked at the marks on the wall. It clearly says that the water is this way. I'm sure that it was there. Jim rushed off to see what Dana was sensing, then came back a moment later. There is a spell of disorientation on the room. I ended up back at the exit.
Shit.
Carl laughed. Would you like me to lead for a bit? Or I can break the illusion, and we can go about our day. You can break the illusion? I didn't even realize that there was one. Carl shrugged. It was extremely subtle. He barely noticed the sensory output that didn't match what his eyes showed him. But he had nullify. Actually, don't break it yet. That will alert whoever said it. Just lead us out of it. Mark decided. Opal, do you want to do it? Carl asked, knowing that the butterfly would not be tricked by an illusion that both Carl and Dana could sense was not perfect. All right, but you have to cast Nullify on the right side exit. That's the way that we want to go, and there is something blocking the way down the stairs. I don't think that we're going to get anywhere except toward the other exits or the dead end, that is the underground river, unless we do. Carl nodded and cast the spell in the indicated direction. And then they were all pulled off the ground, sucked into whatever was unleashed by the nullified barrier. Carl caught Dana as they flew and transformed into a tengu for easier flying. However, a second later, they landed inside a trial instance of some sort, a lush forest setting with no monsters in sight. Oh, I get it. The reason they put the illusion in place was because there was a thing here sucking people in. It was a safety measure. Karen noted as she came out to explore. Nate sighed. We should have likely considered that someone might have hidden an instance. This is the first time that I've had one forcibly pull me in, though. Kara looked up at him with an excited smile. Oh, this isn't a trial. It's a broken separate space that's collided with the caves. That's why it sucked us in. There was an imbalance between it and the immortal world we were on. Now, should we start exploring? Or should we do a scanning spell to see what is hiding nearby? The berserker stared at the transformed badger. Of course we should scan. How else are we going to find out what the threats are in the space? For all we know, it might be full of hostile immortals who are just as trapped here as we are. Kara frowned. What makes you think that I'm trapped? I can just step into the chaos plane and walk right out. Mark stared at the badger for a second, unsure if she was joking. All right. Just like the thing with the light, I might be the only one who is not capable of leaving a separate space with no physical exit. Kara laughed and patted him on the shoulder. But there is an exit. It's over there. I can feel the magic of the portal. The problem is that it doesn't necessarily lead to your home world. It leads to wherever the creator of this space had it set to last. We just happened to enter at the interference point between it and the caves. So, someone else should have started from this point as well, or they wouldn't have blocked it. Now, there are a lot of plants, and I can tell that Sister Remy is getting excited about searching through them for the good stuff. So, should we get started?
Right.
We were on a trip to get plants. We will figure out how to get home later. That's the spirit. The two ninjas laughed at their interaction. Kara knew just how to guide a conversation, and Mark hadn't even realized that her comforting pat was actually to check his pockets. She hadn't kept his pencil, but he did have something on him, so he didn't get the poverty consolation cupcake. Chapter 1638. Movement in the Bushes. Movement in the bushes made Kara cheer, expecting something fun. However, what they found was just one haggard and bedraggled-looking immortal. "Greetings, travelers. Welcome to my not-so-personal hell," he announced in a raspy voice. "Well, hello. I take it that means there are dangerous things in here?" Kara asked. "There are a few. However, that isn't the problem. The exit portal literally leads to hell. Or I should say the sixth circle of the hell dimension. It's literally a link to the holding cells reserved by the pantheons for heretics too annoying to be left unsupervised. There is no way out of here. If you pass through there, you'll be imprisoned by the demons who rule that place, and if you stay here, you get to live a life of mana deprivation and boredom with limited food resources. I vote that we go through the portal." The stranger stared at Kara's too rapid response. "Did you not hear what I said?" "Oh, I heard you. But I really want to go anyhow. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You can't imprison a chaos badger." The immortal definitely didn't believe that. The gods had ways of restraining even each other. Surely, it wouldn't be impossible to restrain a simple badger who is still at the immortal rank. "Is there good stuff in here? I need plants for alchemy. Even if they're mana-starved, that's fine." Remy asked as she left her space. "Can someone translate? I don't speak serpent." Carl inspected the man and realized that his system interface was in an unknown language, though it was translating his language to human common. "She wants to collect the mana-deprived plants from this place to improve the variety of her alchemical garden. I think that if you are willing to cooperate with us, we can likely take you with us when we leave." The man laughed hysterically. "There is no way out. Didn't I just tell you? This place is cut off from reality. Even when it's in contact with the world and new people are pulled in, there is no way out." Carl considered his words, then opened a portal to the flower garden, which caused an instant influx of air and mana until he closed it. "No, I think that it will be fine. I can leave by portal." The immortal collapsed to his knees and began to cry. "There was an exit, a real exit, and you let it close just like that," he sobbed. "You know what? Off you go." Kara announced, then opened a portal. She grabbed him by the shirt and forcibly hurled him through before closing the portal. Problem solved. No more crying. "Now, let's go get the loot." "Shit, wait. What if he had the good loot on him when I kicked him out?" Kara opened the portal again and stepped through, running after the immortal, who had wandered away, crying and hugging strangers in joy. Where did she send him? The clan compound. He's in front of the ice cream shop hugging strangers. Nyan giggled, reminding Carl that she was with them. The cat was remarkably quiet when they were on a mission, like she was doing her best not to be in the way or distracting. "You know that it's going to cause a scene when the badger shakes someone down for loot in the street, right?" "I'm sure it will be fine. He's powerful enough that she's probably not going to kill him. As long as he gives her something shiny, she will let him go." "Well, we know now that it's easy enough to leave. If you can still tell what Kara is doing, then one of you can open a portal back to the other," she decided. "Then, we need to get this place searched for magical resources. Grab what we need and head back home before I need to bail Kara out of jail." "I'm sure it will be fine. Maybe. You know what? We should likely hurry." Dana laughed as she wrapped an arm around Nyan's shoulder. "Don't worry too much. I can hear Kara's thoughts, and she's not actually hurting him. There was no valuable loot here by the time that he arrived, just the plants, and he only focused on survival, so he didn't take anything but food." That was not at all true. Kara currently had him in a headlock in the middle of the street, and was using her bare feet to give him a wedgie while she interrogated him about where the loot was. Everyone was laughing so hard at his inability to get the badger girl off his back that nobody had tried to save him yet. As long as they weren't using skills or weapons, there wasn't much of a crime, other than public nuisance, going on. And that meant that they would let Kara torture the stranger until the elders showed up to see what was going on, or the clan guards intervened to protect the stranger's dignity. If he were a clan member, they would have likely rescued him by now. All right, forward we go. Miss Remy, I will follow your lead. I know a lot about plants, in case you're having trouble identifying some of them. Nyan decided. Excellent. Follow me. My bodyguards will do the hard work for us. Mark sighed. Being a caster is such a cheat. It's like everyone can use golems but me and the warriors. Even the ninjas can summon shadow clones, though they're a bit more useless than regular golems. Well, I don't know of a summoning spell that works for berserkers. But look at it this way, you're smarter than like 80% of the golems that I can summon. Carl offered. That's probably not a compliment. Dana smiled at the berserker. Actually, it is. With the epic golem skill, he can summon a number of dark elven bosses, and they're incredibly sly. Plus, there are exceptions like Oathbreaker. I'll take it then. Chapter 1639. Nothing is worse than boredom. Back in the New Home Merchant Guild's compound, Kara had finished interrogating their guest about the status of his loot. As it turned out, he had nothing worth taking. Even what he did have, she chose to let him keep. Plus, the elders were here now, and if she kept messing with him, they were going to make her do annoying stuff like file reports or sweep streets or something. She had seen their punishment before, and it was diabolical. Of course, only in Kara's mind would the punishment details of the clans seem diabolical. To others, they were remarkably kind and gentle. They didn't even make the clan members undergo intensive training to correct deficiencies. Many others underwent the sort of hellish training scenarios that broke both the mind and body, only to rebuild them into a stronger and more capable member. But compared to boredom and drudgery, all day spent sweeping streets without getting to play any pranks, a mere punishment of pain was bound to be less intolerable. Sitting on the sidewalk, slowly savoring the cupcake that Kara had given him as an apology for showing everyone how poor he was, the bedraggled immortal finally cleared his throat and began to speak. What manner of monster did you bring to that realm? Do you know how many have simply died in there? Either from fighting over food or from mana deprivation. There was never a way out once you were in, yet he simply came with a team and made it look like nothing, like we were all there for fun. Kara patted him on the shoulder. Let me tell you something that I've realized since I arrived in this world. Despite having forever to learn cool new things, only 1 in 100 is actually capable of it. If you've based your entire journey to immortality on combat, what are you going to do as an immortal? Fight forever? That's all that you built your power base up to do. Now, I focused on causing just the right amount of chaos. So I diversified my skills. I can do all sorts of things, from moving between planes, to summoning golems, to cooking, and I can even nullify offensive barriers, like the one that was probably intended to keep us all from getting sucked into your little prison realm. That was fun. But the important part here is that you have been liberated, and this lovely elder is going to have a long talk with you, during which I recommend that you come up with things you want to do other than get into fights. Learn new skills, become a better person, surprise everyone that you meet. The man nodded in understanding, working hard to process everything that Kara had told him, while the elder was trying to calculate what exactly her angle was. There was no way that Kara gave him good advice. Unless she meant that seeing him trying to make himself a better person with a diversified skill set was the most entertaining thing that he could possibly do right now. He hated to admit that she might not be wrong. Seeing an immortal from one of the combat sects trying to learn new things was always funny because they were so hopelessly useless at it. He didn't know yet where Kara had found this unfortunate man, but he didn't look like he had a lot going for him, given his condition. All right, I will take him off your hands. Where did you leave the rest of your team? The elder's question made Kara laugh. We may have broken the protective barrier in the earth element caves that was keeping people from being sucked into a damaged pocket realm that had collided with it. So, they're in there, exploring and looking for rare plant species for the alchemy gardens. Once they're finished in there, they'll be back. I asked this fine gentleman, and he says that there are no relics or anything left in there, only a portal to the heretics' level of hell. Are we going to have to send a team of demons to go get the rest of your team tomorrow? The elder asked pragmatically. I'm sure they'll be fine. Even if they get arrested when they go through, Carl can sweet-talk his way out of nearly anything, and he'll probably convince them that he's there for a visitation or something. The elder sighed. You know, I can believe nearly anything of him. Plus, he's brought his wife and that insane cat. She's no less crazy than the moron is. She simply hides it better. Kara nodded enthusiastically. That is true. They're from the same world, and everything. Oh, the things that I know about our beloved Nyan. Well, more beloved to some of us than others. The elder looked confused for a moment, then realized that there was another elder behind him, pointedly looking away as Kara gave him a smug smile.
So that's how it was.
But that was not all that Kara knew. She also knew all about how Pretty Kitty had come to her mortal world, and that would make her story much more interesting if the cat wasn't too embarrassed to tell anyone. Perhaps she would get her drunk enough to share it later. In the separate space, Nyan rubbed her nose. Someone was definitely plotting against her. She could sense it. But who? It wasn't someone nearby. She couldn't sense anything from them that might be ill intent. So, it had to be someone back at the clan. But she hadn't upset anyone lately that she could think of. Could it be that Jeff was getting lonely without someone to hold him? No, that shouldn't be the case. She had passed him directly to the Green Dragon cleric this morning. He wouldn't be short on cuddles. Jeff looked up from his hiding spot. Nyan was going to pay for giving him to a Green Dragon cleric. That insane woman treated him like a small child, and if he had to test one more of her unique cupcake flavors, he was going to burst. Chapter 1640, The Core. Remy looked down at the collection of plants that she had managed to find here. The strange man that Kara ejected had been right. The plants here were dismal. The place was a supreme rank space at some point, but it was nearly completely depleted of energy, leaking every time that it made contact with another world. That had caused the plants to wither and degrade, but if she planted these and nurtured them, she was certain that her space should be able to at least bring their potential back to the peak of immortal-grade resources. That should be more than enough for her alchemy needs, once she figured out what they all were and what they did. Anything that had even a remotely magical aura had been collected, as this place was dying anyhow. So, she had quite the variety ready for planting, while Thor and Ray had nearly as much. Ray had avoided the ones that glowed, and Hawk only took the fire element ones. But Thor focused on the ones that smelled like they might be tasty. That would come in handy when they got back to the tiny world, as he could replant some of them for food crops. Hey, I think that I found something, but I don't know what to call it. Nyan called from a few hundred meters away. Dana rushed over to see what the cat had found, but she couldn't identify it either. It looked like some sort of statue, but she had no idea what species or deity it was supposed to represent. It was heavily weathered, which didn't help, as the whole surface had been worn smooth. But still, it didn't match anything that she could identify, and it was too symmetrical to be a creature of chaos. You're right. I have no idea what that is either, but it is magical. I know runecrafting, and the magic feels similar, but with all the runes worn off, I don't know how it would still have magic. Unless they're inside the stone. Carl came over and examined the stone. There was magic to it, but definitely not runic magic. It felt similar, in that it seemed to come right from the fundamental level of the rules of magic. But it wasn't anything as refined as runes. Perhaps it was shamanistic? Remy, come check this out. It might be a shaman statue. The Naga rushed over, and had her bodyguards pick up the stone so she could examine it. That is strange. It's magic, but it's not shaman magic either. It's not elemental in nature. I think it might be related to the fundamental rule of creation. It feels almost shamanistic, but more primal, like it doesn't belong to an age of sentient creatures, but the formation of this space. Oh, that's it. I think that it might be the core stone for this space. Nyan stared at the stone. We probably shouldn't take that.
True.
If we collapse the space while we're in it, we will likely end up either tossed into the void, or we will create a hell portal in the caverns right outside the clan compound. That might not impress the elders. Mark nodded emphatically. They definitely will not be happy with us if we don't either block off this place again when we leave, or if we turn it into a gigantic portal to hell. Ray laughed at the thought. The elders would lose their minds if they did that. Especially as it wasn't a dungeon or a trial instance. It was an actual entry to the lower planes. Alright, we can put this back somewhere that it belongs. It was clearly buried here and didn't come from this spot. The base is flat with a square indent, so it was meant to sit either on an altar or plinth. Carl noted. Alright, we search for the base to put the stone back on, and then we head out. I've already got one or more of each type of plant, I think. The golems have been spread out for a while, and they're not bringing the Dana mage anything back. Remy informed them. Dana frowned. That was right. She had sent her golems out a while ago, and they hadn't brought back anything new. Could something have happened to them? She didn't sense an attack, and she didn't sense any damage to them. They were still going about looking for new types of plants, as she had directed them, and she had picked the Elven Kings, so they were not lacking in intelligence or agility. The group quickly spread out, looking for signs of what might have been the altar, but they also took the time to search the area around where Nyan had found the statue. It might have been toppled and buried right next to its base, and then lost to time underground. With so little information to go on, all that they could do was to search everywhere, and there were more than a few ruined stone buildings in this place. There were also many graves in this place, those killed in battle, Carl assumed. Though, if they were trapped in here and starving, some might have resorted to finding new and innovative food sources, which could have easily led to poisoning if they were incapable of self-healing. That appeared to be a common predicament for some immortals. How they hadn't thought that regeneration at the very least would be in their best interest, Carl didn't understand. But so many of the warrior types focused entirely on combat skills and simply used potions or allies for their healing needs. Even his stabbiest group member at least had a healthy regeneration rate to fall back on, plus life leech and other basic self-healing methods. Carl let his mind wander as he searched for the altar, and eventually found himself standing in front of a ruined stone staircase. There was a partially broken lion statue on one side, but the other was empty. There, that should be it. There was a raised stone at the top of the stairs that should be the right size to fit the base of the other statue. Now, they could put it back, and the core of the space should function as well as possible. He would say properly, but given the condition of it, that seemed unlikely.